Hey, welcome back to Well, That's Interesting, the All About Our Myths edition. Today is episode 284, The Mystery of the Tiny Mummified Green Hand, and these 40,000-year-old marks may be a precursor to writing. My friends, if you're a long-time listener of this show, then you know next to holes and parasites, I can't seem to shut up about rediscoveries. For example, just last month, during the milestone of episode 280, not only did we learn that hummingbirds drink the equivalent of one alcoholic beverage a day thanks to some flowers transforming into microbreweries, but we met Dr. Yorios Yorgoulos, whose name alone sounds like an ancient species, but no, he's very human, and he's from the Institute of Systematics and Evolution of Animals of the Polish Academy of Sciences in Krakow. It was his life's goal to rummage through the drawers of London's Natural History Museum, all in hopes, and in the staggering off chance, he'd come across a long-forgotten-about set of bones. The odds were somehow in his favor, as in one of these drawers he, rediscovered a small collection of vertebra belonging to what his skilled eye believed was a snake. Now, if you haven't had a listen, I'm not going to give all the fun details away here, but yes, it was a snake. The bones, found in 1981, were tucked away and never examined. Until Dr. G fulfilled his lifelong dream and discovered that these bones belong to a missing link of sorts. It's the ancestor of some aquatic snakes alive today. And speaking of today, in the first half of the show, honestly, this could be the makings of a horror franchise. During an archaeological dig at an abandoned cemetery in Narlorink, Hungary, a team uncovered a ceramic pot. And inside that pot was, you guessed it, the remains of a tiny human. Those remains were laid out. They were photographed and eventually sorted within the archives of the University of Szeged, waiting their turn for analysis. Well, in 2005, those bones finally had their chance to speak and tell their tale. And what a tale they had to tell. For you see, some of these bones were dyed green, and the right hand, not only was that also green, but it retained some of its flesh. We will learn more about this abandoned cemetery. We will meet the team who came across these photographs and said, holy shit, why is this mummified hand green? And why is this the only bone with flesh still attached? Maybe we should look into it. We will peek over their shoulders as they finally handle this human skeleton, and from what they discover about this rediscovery, it just may bring a tear to your eye. Yeah, this horror movie is actually a drama. Then after the break, a 40,000-year-old small object called the Adorant figurine, found in a German cave in 1979, is making waves just this year. In fact, 260 rediscovered artifacts found throughout caves in southwestern Germany are making linguists clutch their pearls. In sum, as reported in a February Saarland University press release, thanks to a new analysis by linguist Christian Benz and archaeologist Eva Dukowitz, nailed it, at the Museum of Prehistory and Early History in Berlin, the lines, crosses, dots, and notches etched into these Stone Age remnants, they aren't random, or simply there for decorative purposes. After scanning each piece and performing so many computational analyses, it turns out these marks have reasoning behind them. Oh yes, we will gaze upon the 3,000 markings found on these 260 artifacts. We will be in amazement at their beauty and sophistication. We will meet the ancient people who created these crafts 40,000 years ago, and our hearts will swell as Christian and Eva come to realize that these marks have the same level of complexity and information density as the earliest proto-cuneiform script that emerged tens of thousands of years later. We're talking as recent as 3000 BCE. Writing had to start somewhere. In the meantime, hi, I'm Jill Chacha, and if this is your first time listening, welcome to the flock, my expressive business goose. To begin, I'm going to need you to pack your favorite fine-tooth comb and to channel your inner goth, because I just booked us all premium economy flights to Budapest International Airport. From here, we're going to hop onto a mid-sized sedan and drive south about 68 miles to the center of Hungary, where an abandoned late medieval cemetery called Narlorink Hungarut awaits. And for my fellow geographically challenged Americans who are easily spooked and are like, oh my god, We're going to dig up a body, aren't we? At least, tell me where we are exactly. Yes, we are, and yes, I will. But trust me, this is going to turn out to be more heartbreaking than haunting, so maybe bubble wrap your heart, just in case. In the meantime, imagine Germany. Thank you. Point to the lower right corner, and then move your finger down a smidge. Great. There is Austria. Now again, do the same thing, point to the lower right-hand corner, and move down a bit. Perfect. There is Hungary, whose shape is something of a smushed bat with its wings out, but again, this isn't a haunting situation. It just happens to look that way, and we're in the center of this country, standing within an abandoned late medieval cemetery. Our plane ride also just so happened to take us back about 20 years, to the early 2000s. It was then a group of goth archaeologists thought it was finally time to scrub down the headstones and unearth the bodies of those who were buried here during a time long forgotten. If you'd like to lend a hand, bust out that fine-tooth comb I asked you to bring and get to town on one of these 540 or so headstones. After some scrubbing, you'll see that all of the occupants of this place were laid to rest between the 12th and 16th centuries, not far from a nearby 13th century church that's still in operation. Well, not all of the occupants, but I'm getting ahead of myself. And please, if you will, put a pin in that church. We will get back to it. Let's focus on one of the most unusual excavations. So to do so, please drop that fine-tooth comb and pick up your phone to tap on today's post over at the socials. Swipe past the map of Hungary and you'll see a ceramic pot whose painted details have faded, and at some point it experienced a cave-in, leaving a gaping hole in one side. Upon peeking into that gaping hole, the archaeologists saw this. Please swipe past that image and I'll give you a second to take in the new photo. Oh yeah, that's a skeleton, and as you can imagine, to fit inside a ceramic pot, it had to be a very small one. My friends, this skeleton is incomplete, but there are enough bones to confirm that this was human. There's a bit of collarbone, several ribs, a lower spine, and a right hip bone. Most of the bones of the left and right arms are here, and the same could be said of the legs. But I can see the look on your faces from here. You're distracted by the presence of something else. And that something else is the color green and some flesh. Am I right? Yeah. If this stopped you in your tracks, you are not alone. In 2005, University of Szeged biological anthropologists Janos Balázs and Zoltán Bolki looked upon the same photograph and were immediately taken aback. In an interview with Nicolas St. Fleur of the New York Times, Janos recalled that several of the bones, quote, including some vertebra, a hip bone, and the leg bones, were stained green. Both forearms were green as well, but the right one was still covered in desiccated flesh. The skin near the back was also mummified and embedded with 5 vertebra pieces. But most of the ribs, a shoulder bone, and 2 humerus bones were not discolored. End quote. Well, my average flesh-toned business goose, if you imagine this skeleton curled up and packed in a ceramic pot, it's clear that something at a central point, that being the right hand, led to the mummification and green discoloration of the surrounding remains. As to what can do such a thing, well, I am so glad you asked. Believe it or not, this isn't the first time someone cracked open a grave and green bones popped out. Although rare, as reported by Michelle Starr of Science Alert, copper jewelry can cause skeletal staining as the oxidized metal leaches into the bones. And, as cited in the somehow still functioning website of the NIH, copper is a potent, natural antimicrobial agent that rapidly kills bacteria, viruses, and fungi on contact by causing oxidative damage that destroys their cellular structures. In sum, copper can prevent decay, leaving green mummified flesh behind. One of the most famous cases was written about way the fuck back in 1888, when Frederick Ward Putnam of the Peabody Museum at Harvard University exhumed and studied the body of an indigenous Native American with the same coloration. From his very TMI report, quote, over the head was a broad piece of copper, extending from ear to ear, and over this a woven net of bark fiber, outside of which was a braided mat of cedar bark. The action of the copper upon these fabrics and upon the scalp has preserved them, and also the hair and skin under the copper. The bones of the face and portions of the cranium are deeply stained by the copper. Even the interior of the cranium is stained green, and the action of the copper, with the favorable conditions of the dry soil, has preserved a portion of the brain mass with its membranes in the form of a hard, dark ball." End quote. Well, thank you, Frederick, for really getting in there and sharing your findings. But yes, you heard the unusually inquisitive man. Between the copper, dry environment, and shielded flesh, an opportunity for mummification was created. So now, one must ask, did the same thing happen here? To find out, Janos and Zoltan hitched up their pants, but they didn't have to travel very far. The bones were housed on the university campus, and inside a box labeled individual number 14426. With direct access to the bones, a chemical analysis could finally begin. So, after all the clickety-clack calculations, what did the duo find? Drumroll, please. Let's start with one of the many tragic facts that I will be dumping upon you. I'm sorry about that. According to their study, with the unfathomably long title of Partial Mummification and Extraordinary Context Observed in Perineate Burials, a complex osteoarchaeological study applying it still goes, ICP, AES, MU, XRF, and macromorphological methods, what lay before them was quite the opposite and very, very teeny. Quote, "On the basis of the bone dimensions, the age at death of the mummified preterm individual was 6.5 to 7 lunar months. The body might have been approximately 28 to 35 centimeters or 11 to 13 inches long and weighed about 0.4 to 0.9 kilos or 1 to 2 pounds. Our examination revealed no disease-related symptoms in the remains." End quote. In sum, the team determined the deceased was either a stillborn or a premature baby that died shortly after birth. As for the bones and flesh with the green hue, it was confirmed. They were jam-packed with copper. Copper levels were 497 times higher than what's found in the soil of a typical burial. So, you may be asking, where is the object? Once again, great question. But once again, the answers had to wait. After a decade, yes, a decade of tracking down the additional contents of this ceramic pot, the team got lucky in 2015. And as it just so happens, they didn't have to travel very far. The single artifact was being housed in Hungary's Mummified Museum, 5 miles away. And as reported by Nicholas St. Fleur of the Times, things literally began to fall into place. Inside another box, in a storage room, was a single corroded copper coin, whose miniature size itself fit perfectly into the right palm of the child. With this finding, at least one mystery was solved. The copper's antimicrobial properties protected the child's hand from decaying completely. But with the coin came 2 enormous puzzles. First, this coin, or Karwajstar in my broken Hungarian, was in circulation between 1858 and 1862, meaning it was 150 years older than the last official burial in our abandoned cemetery. And second, why this child was placed here and why a coin placed in its hand to begin with? The team has a theory, and you're going to want to sit for this, so please unpin that pin from before, the one about the 13th century church nearby. Quote, "According to ethnographic references, newborns who died without being baptized were rolled up in some sort of textile and buried in a pot, for example, a milk jug or a small wooden box, in abandoned cemeteries usually located next to ruins of medieval churches. Occasionally, low-value coins were put next to a body as an offering. The coins were intended to facilitate the soul's admission to heaven, or served to pay the fee on the way to the underworld. Or they paid St. John the Baptist for christening the deceased when in heaven." End quote, from the study. Yeah, are you okay? No? No, yeah, that's all right, no one is. Especially after I drop this new information on you. The kid wasn't alone. 2 other non-mummified bodies were found in ceramic pots during the same archaeological dig. One had been buried with a copper coin, but it did not mummify, possibly because other environmental factors were not present, like they were for individual number 14426. The other, no copper piece was found, but, and big but here, the soil did register higher than normal copper levels. So, was it missed? Is their coin lost? Are these 3 related? Like I said, this is a heartbreaking tale, but the authors made a reassuring point at the end of their study. Whoever the parents were, this act did pay off in a way. Quote, they kind of succeeded at not saving necessarily the soul, but some kind of legacy of this little kid, because here we are, still talking about the baby and the circumstances of its burial 150 years later. End quote. Anthropologist and co-author Zsolt Bereksi told the New York Times. Well, goddamn. After the break, more fucking legacy. We are leaving Hungary and backtracking to Germany, where we will be traveling farther back in time. Here, hundreds of ancient figurines and tools were found throughout caves in the Southwest during the late 1970s. But it wasn't until recently linguists took a gander at the lines, crosses, and etchings adorning them. Turns out, there's more than meets the eye. Some of the oldest forms of generational intercommunication are next. Think of them as the original wikis. Stay tuned.
Hey listeners, quick question. Do you know what extraterrestrial radio signals and a mushroom from Texas have in common? Or what a number station is and why it's so haunting and creepy? If you're intrigued by those questions, Midnight Facts for Insomniacs has the answers.
Join us, Duncan and Shane, hosts, comedians, and best friends, on hilarious deep dives into obscure facts from science, history, and pop culture.
So whether you're nocturnal or just a fan of laughing and learning, we'll keep you entertained. Find Midnight Facts for Insomniacs wherever you're listening to this show.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire, the no-show. Who set you back because they didn't show up on day 1, or day 2, or ever again. And now your product launch is delayed because you're talking to alien abduction podcasters to track them down. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can help make sure your next hire sticks. In fact, businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
And we're back. We are so back, and my friends, I hope you're still hanging on to your fine-tooth comb because we're gonna need it. You and I are hopping back into our premium economy seats and flying into southwest Germany, specifically to a 137-mile mountain range called Swabian Jura. And for my fellow geographically challenged Americans who are already a little jet-lagged and are wondering just how far south and west we are for perspective, well, we're just a mere 2 to 3 hours north of what is today Switzerland. And I say what is today because, according to UNESCO's website, about 43,000 years ago, during the last ice age, modern humans first arrived in Europe. And an adventurous handful of them made their way up and into where we are right the fuck now. Swabian Jura, Germany. And if you drop whatever Jura you're holding right now and pick up your phone to tap on today's posts on the old socials, swipe past all the limbs, and you're going to see the unassuming entrances to 4 of the 6 caves that they took up residence. It was here, in the 1860s, an equally adventurous handful of archaeologists spotted these holes and said, I wonder what's inside. Well, I don't believe any of them could have predicted this. Quote, among the 6 caves are carved figurines of animals including cave lions, mammoths, horses, and bovids, musical instruments, and items of personal adornment. Other figurines depict creatures that are half animal, half human, and there is one statuette of a woman. These archaeological sites feature some of the oldest figurative art worldwide, dating back to 43,000 to 33,000 years ago, helping to shed light on the origins of human artistic development, end quote, from the website. My ambitious business goose. We will meet the people who created these objects shortly, so put a pin in that. And please, don't put down that phone. We first need to meet one of the most famous figurines discovered in one of these 6 caves, the Geisenklösterle cave. You know the one. So please, swipe on to the next image. I'll give you a sec just to take it all in. Okay, now if you said to yourself, this looks like the body of a person chiseled out of one side of a block of wood or stone or something. If you said that, you're not too far off. What's been called the adorant figure was initially found during a 1979 excavation, and ever since it has been in the hearts of archaeologists and nerds alike ever since. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Carbon dating has revealed it was crafted sometime between 35,000 to 32,000 years ago out of mammoth tusk. The front side depicts a hybrid lion-human creature with raised arms and outstretched legs, but it has no hands. As reported by the Oxford Handbook of Prehistoric Figurines, you know the one, the posture is usually interpreted as an expression of worship, which is why in German the figure is called the adorant, meaning worshipper. On the reverse side, though, there are 88 small horizontal lines in even rows. Now, the photo is a bit misleading because you can't really grasp the size of this piece. And once I tell you what the actual dimensions are, you'll get an idea about how precise the artist had to be. This so-called block of mammoth tusk is a mere half-inch tall and a half-inch wide. That's it. It's no surprise, then, when a lucky archaeologist brushed off this piece with their own fine-tooth comb, it was believed it has to be a work of art. I mean, surely, it is. But since 1979, and as even described by the UNESCO website, this piece and others like it were taken for face value and considered exclusively art, expression, representations. Perhaps it was a sculpture made in passing between all the hunting and the gathering at the time. Well, Christian Benz at Saarland University and archaeologist Eva Dutkiewicz at the Museum of Prehistory and Early History in Berlin got to thinking and got to talking. Since the cave's discovery, 260 marked objects have been found in addition to the adorant, including the figure of a small mammoth plucked from the Vogelherd cave. It too is made of mammoth tusk. But on specific areas of its body, there are rows of crosses and dots, and they're carefully engraved. Long, thin tusks and animal bones were also found, and they contain rows of arrows in repetitive directions and rows of crosses as well. Another mystical depiction of a human-lion hybrid from the Hollenstenstadel cave has the identical notches that we just saw on the adorant, but they're placed at regular intervals along one of its arms. If you'd like to use one of your arms to pick up your phone to tap on today's post to see a photo of any of these, please do. You might just say to yourself, damn, they look pretty for sure, but do they mean anything? Well, I am so glad you asked. As reported by Will Dunham of Reuters, as of right now, the duo had no way to interpret what these marks may mean. But, and big but here, if the marks did have meaning, there should be a pattern to them. Just like written language has a pattern, and what's called information density. This concept refers to the amount of information conveyed per unit of language, like a syllable, or in this case, a mark. Many marks could mean more information in that row. By comparing and contrasting the patterns with writing systems that developed later, the team could prove that these marks are more than art. They could be containing information. So, how in the holy fuck do you go about proving Stone Age peoples were making their own wikis, so to speak? Easy. Algorithms. Well, no, that's a complete lie. It took Christian and Eva years to scan 3,000 geometric signs found on around 260 objects, and to create a computational system that compares these marks and their arrangements to some of the earliest written languages we know of. including the writings on proto-cuneiform tablets from ancient Mesopotamia. Now what the fuck is that? Long literal story short, proto-cuneiform and cuneiform writing emerged from 5300 to 3000 BCE in Uruk in southern Mesopotamia, which is today Iraq. It is the oldest form of writing as we know it so far, and that writing was made of pictographs and numerical signs pressed into clay tablets. These marks represented administrative and the economic tracking of goods, labor, and inventory rather than the spoken language at the time. So there was no alphabet per se, but rather characters to represent entire words. If you swipe past the mammoth and the bones on today's posts, you'll see a tablet, and once again, you might find yourself saying, holy shit, I can see similarities. I mean, this tablet has way more marks on it, but like the objects from Germany, they have repetition and pattern. So the question is, are these objects actually precursors to such a system? Drumroll, please. Thank you in the back. After finally letting their algorithms fly, quote, our findings show that Paleolithic hunter-gatherers developed a system of symbols that has an information density that is statistically comparable to the earliest proto-cuneiform tablets from ancient Mesopotamia, which came 40,000 years later. Sign sequences in proto-cuneiform scripts are also repetitive, and the individual signs are repeated at a similar rate. In terms of complexity, the sign sequences are comparable. End quote, Christian said in the team's February Saarland University press release. And my friends, you may be shocked by these results, but you are not nearly as shook as the owl on the Saarland University's logo. This bird has seen some shit, and it has not blinked ever since. And yes, I have a screenshot of it, and yes, you will agree with me. Its eyes. Its eyes. Anyway, back to these works of art that have been proven to be more than that. 40,000 years ago, Stone Age people were recording and conveying information to others and passing on this information of etching to younger generations. Christian went on to explain, thanks to the high rate of repetitions and the high predictability of the next sign in a sequence, the team was able to show that the information density present in these folks' system is comparable to that of proto-cuneiform writing, which came much, much later. Speaking of the system, here's an example of how it worked, or rather what patterns the team picked up on. As reported by Michelle Starr of Science Alert, different types of objects bore different patterns. For example, crosses were only found on tools and animal figurines, but not on human figurines. And all figurines carried sequences with information density roughly 15% higher than tools. Tools, in turn, showed about 10% higher density than flute-like artifacts, and those around 15% higher than personal ornaments. So, round of applause for these Upper Paleolithic people for their trailblazing constructive creativity. Give them a round, folks. Thank you. And now we must ask, who the fuck were these Paleolithic people anyway? Well, my friends, please point to what is now Spain, and move your finger all the way to what remains of today's Ukraine. From 43,000 years ago up until 17,000 years ago, as glaciers melted, receded, and granted access, humans took advantage of these new routes and migrated across the European continent. The peoples of the Upper Paleolithic, from approximately 43,000 to 26,000 years ago, are who we modern humans have called the Aurignacian. And they're widely recognized as the first people to create culture. Now, what the fuck does that mean? Well, mostly art, and as of this study, communication. But let's talk about their art. One of the oldest examples of figurative art to exist is the Venus of Whole Fells, and it comes from the Aurignacian, and it's dated between 40,000 and 35,000 years ago. These types of Venuses are representations of the female figure, and let's just say they are extremely ample. If this may sound familiar to you, you are right. Back in episode 272, let's talk about the prince who was mauled to death 27,000 years ago, and super kilonovas are a thing, and one may have popped off twice. We learned about the Gravettian, the Paleolithic people who buried that boy in an elaborate tomb. The Gravettian were the descendants of the Auric nation, and as such, they too made Venuses in their own style, but they very much kept the tradition of the ampleness. The Auric nation created some of the oldest cave art on the continent, including the famous, delicate, yet powerful lionesses of the Chauvet Cave in France. A 2005 study, aptly called Estimates of Upper Paleolithic Metapopulation Size in Europe from Archaeological Data, estimated the population size of the Auric nation from 40,000 to 30,000 years ago, and they found that there were no more than 28,000 people. That's it. Survival was difficult to say the least, but we know that they thrived. And perhaps they did so because, thanks to Christian and Eva, we discovered that they used some form of communication, represented on figurines and tools. This might be the only time coding actually helped humanity. And thank you for listening, rating, subscribing, following, telling your friends about the body that these people found in the pot, in an abandoned cave, an abandoned cemetery, even better. It was an abandoned cemetery in Hungary. You should tell your friends that, and then tell them the even more heartbreaking news. God. And then tell them about all these marks on all these naked people, and how it was like information and stuff. Nothing changes. And ample thanks to the folks over at Airwave Media, the podcast network to which WTI belongs. If you love this show, and you do, you'll love the other podcasts in this family. And please, stay interesting.